The city never slept. Bright towers reached for the sky, but in the lower streets, shadows always stayed. The human, named Daniel, walked through the narrow alleys with his hands deep in his pockets. He had no reason to be there except cheap food and a shortcut to his small room. But that night, something different was waiting for him. He heard it first as a faint sound, a soft cry, almost like the wind. But then it grew clearer, two high voices whispering, sobbing, begging. Daniel stopped, his heart thumping louder than his footsteps. The alley ahead was darker. The neon signs flickered, and strange figures moved in the corner. He pressed himself against the wall, peeking. 3 alien men stood there, tall and rough, their skin glowing faint blue under the streetlight. Between them were 2 small shapes, trembling. 2 little alien girls with large golden eyes and thin, fragile arms. They were clutching each other tightly as if they only had each other in the world. "Please, no more," one of them whispered in a broken voice. The men laughed, their voices harsh and cruel. "They will sell well. No one will miss them," one said, gripping the girls by the arm. Daniel's chest tightened. His mind screamed at him to keep walking, to avoid trouble. He was just a poor man with no weapon. No strength against aliens twice his size, but his legs refused to move away. The older girl cried out as one man pushed her down. Her younger sister screamed, the sound sharp enough to cut through Daniel's soul. Something inside him snapped. He couldn't walk away. Not tonight. He stepped forward, his shadow stretching under the broken light. "Let them go," Daniel said, his voice steady but low. The men turned, surprised. For a moment, silence hung in the air, broken only by the sobs of the children. The tallest alien sneered. "A human?" he said, mocking. "Go back to your dirt. This is none of your business." But Daniel didn't step back. His fists clenched, though his hands shook slightly. The girls looked at him with wide eyes. Hope and fear mixed together. "You don't want to do this," Daniel said. His voice was calm, but inside his heart raced like thunder. The men laughed again, one stepping closer. "You will regret this," he growled, reaching out. But Daniel had learned something living in this city. Humans may not be the strongest, but they could be quick, clever, desperate. He grabbed a loose pipe from the ground, rusted but solid. Before the alien could strike, Daniel swung it hard against the man's leg. The alien roared, stumbling back. The other 2 rushed forward, but Daniel darted sideways, pushing one into the wall. The girls cried out again, but their voices were now filled with shock. Daniel knew he couldn't win in a long fight, but he didn't need to win. He only needed to scare them. "Police are coming," he shouted into the night, hoping the lie would work. His voice echoed loud through the alley. The aliens froze, fear flashing across their faces. They looked at each other, then cursed in their language. In seconds, they vanished into the shadows, leaving Daniel and the girls alone. Silence returned, heavy and strange. Daniel dropped the pipe, breathing hard, sweat rolling down his face. The girls stayed pressed against the wall, shaking. Slowly, he knelt down so he wouldn't look so tall. "It's okay," he whispered. "They're gone now." The older girl hesitated, her lips trembling. Then she reached out a thin hand and touched his sleeve. Her sister followed, clutching his arm as if afraid he might disappear. Their eyes shone with tears, but also with something else. Trust. The first spark of it. Daniel looked around the alley, but it was empty now. Only broken glass, wet ground, and fading neon light. He sighed, realizing he had just stepped into something much bigger than himself. He didn't know who these children were, or why they were alone. But one thing was clear: if he left them here, they would not survive the night. "Come with me," he said softly. The girls glanced at each other, then nodded. Their small hands slipped into his, cold and fragile. As they walked out of the alley together, Daniel felt eyes watching from the shadows. But when he turned, there was nothing. Only the flicker of lights and the echo of his own footsteps. The city above still shone, the towers glowing against the night sky. But in the alley of shadows, something had changed forever. Daniel didn't know yet what price he would pay. He only knew he couldn't walk away anymore. The two alien girls followed him closely, their future now tied to his choice. And somewhere, far beyond the alley, a figure stirred, a presence searching, waiting. The night had only just begun. Daniel led the two little alien girls out of the alley, his hands still trembling from what had just happened. The city lights above were bright, but the streets below still smelled of danger. He knew those men might return, maybe with more friends, and he had just made enemies he didn't understand. Still, when he looked down at the girls holding his sleeves tightly, he knew there was no turning back. The older girl, with golden eyes and short silver hair, finally whispered, Why did you help us?" Her voice was soft, broken, like someone who had never expected kindness. Daniel glanced at her and gave a small smile, though he felt fear inside. "Because no one else would," he said, his voice low but firm. The younger girl clung closer, her eyes darting around every shadow. She hadn't spoken yet, but her tears had slowed. She pressed her tiny hand into Daniel's palm as if testing whether he was real. It felt like she was holding on to her last hope. And Daniel realized how fragile they really were. The streets grew quieter as he led them toward his small apartment. Neon signs flickered overhead, and in the distance hovercars hummed across the skyline. The girls walked silently, their bare feet making almost no sound. Daniel thought about questions he couldn't ask. Who were they? Where were their parents? Why were they hunted? But he knew this wasn't the time. When they finally reached his apartment, Daniel pushed open the rusty door. The room was small, one bed, one broken chair, a table with scratches across it, hardly the place to bring guests. Yet the two girls looked around as if stepping into a palace, their eyes wide, their bodies finally loosening just a little. "Sit here," Daniel said, pulling the chair closer. He reached for the old heater and switched it on, hoping the weak coils would make them warm. The younger one sat on the floor anyway, wrapping her arms around her knees. The older girl pulled her close, whispering something in their alien tongue. Daniel didn't understand the words, but he understood the meaning. It was comfort. It was family. His stomach growled, reminding him he hadn't eaten. He walked to the corner where a small stove sat. He searched through the cupboard, just a half bag of rice, some beans, and dried vegetables. Not much, but it would have to do. When the pot began to boil, the smell filled the small room. The girls watched, their eyes following every move as if they hadn't seen food in days. Daniel placed the bowls on the table. "Eat," he said gently. The older girl hesitated, then lifted the spoon carefully. The younger one didn't wait. She began eating. Fast, almost desperate, Daniel had to place his hand on hers to slow her down. "You'll choke," he warned softly. Her big eyes blinked, and she nodded, eating slower now. For the first time that night, Daniel felt his chest loosen. As they ate, he studied them closer. Their faces were pale but beautiful, their small bodies thin and fragile. They weren't ordinary children. Something about the shape of their eyes and the faint glow of their skin told him that much. He wondered what kind of world they came from, and why they ended up in the darkest corners of this city. But before he could speak, a sound outside froze him. Heavy boots on the metal walkway, voices in the distance, harsh and angry. The same kind of voices he had heard in the alley. Daniel quickly moved to the window and peeked out. Two of the men from before were searching the street below. Their glowing eyes scanned every corner, their hands carrying sharp blades. The girls went stiff, their spoons clattering against the bowls. The younger one whispered, "They came back," her voice breaking. Daniel turned, his jaw tight. "Stay quiet," he ordered softly. He switched off the heater, pulled the curtains, and motioned for them to stay under the bed. The girls crawled quickly, their small bodies trembling as they hid. Daniel grabbed the same rusty pipe he had used earlier. His hands shook, but his eyes were sharp. He stood by the door, listening, waiting. The footsteps grew louder, closer, until they stopped right outside. A loud knock thundered against the door. "Human!" one of them shouted, his voice deep and cruel. "We know you have them. Open up or we burn your place down." Daniel's throat went dry. If he opened the door, he couldn't protect them. If he stayed silent, They might break in. The air grew heavy. The girl's frightened breathing audible even under the bed. Daniel clenched the pipe tighter. "Go away," he said loudly, his voice shaking only slightly. "There's no one. Here." The men outside laughed, the sound echoing like thunder in the hall. "We'll see," one growled. Then silence. Too sudden, too dangerous. Daniel's heart pounded as he pressed his back to the wall. Every second stretched long, every sound too sharp. He didn't know if the men had left or if they were waiting to strike. Finally, after what felt like hours, the sound of footsteps faded. The tension eased, but not completely. Daniel looked at the girls crawling out from under the bed, their eyes wide and wet. He lowered the pipe and sighed. "Looks like we're not safe yet," he whispered. The older girl walked closer. She placed her small hand on his arm, her golden eyes steady. "Now, you saved us again," she said quietly. Daniel swallowed hard, staring at her innocent face. He didn't feel like a savior, just a man trapped in something bigger than himself. But when both girls hugged him tightly, refusing to let go, he realized there was no way back. He had rescued them once, now he would have to protect them, no matter the cost. And somewhere outside in the shadows of the city, someone powerful was already searching, not just for the girls, but for the human who dared to interfere. The city outside never grew quiet. Even at midnight, the hum of hover cars, the shouts from bars, and the distant rumble of machines filled the air. But inside Daniel's small apartment, the world felt different. It was silent, heavy, almost fragile. Two little alien girls sat curled together on his bed while he sat on the floor with his back against the wall, the pipe still resting beside him. He could not sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he imagined those men breaking down the door. He imagined their glowing eyes and sharp weapons. He imagined the fear in the girls' faces, and he knew he could not fail them. The older girl finally broke the silence. Her voice was soft, almost a whisper. "My name is Lyra," she said. She nudged the smaller one who had already fallen half asleep, her head resting against her sister's shoulder. "This is Sarah," she added, her eyes shining faintly in the dim light. Daniel nodded slowly. His throat felt dry, but he forced a gentle smile. "I'm Daniel," he said. The simple exchange of names felt heavier than anything else that night. It made them real, not just strangers he had rescued, but lives now tied to his own. Lyra looked at him carefully. Her golden eyes studied his tired face as if searching for the reason behind his choice. "You didn't know us," she whispered. "So why help us? Why not leave us?" Daniel's gaze shifted toward the small window, the neon light from outside, flickering across his face. "Because someone had to," he said finally, his voice steady. "Because no one deserves to cry like that." Silence followed. But this silence felt different. Not fear, but something fragile. Something like trust. Beginning to grow, Sarah stirred in her sleep, mumbling softly in a language Daniel didn't know. Her tiny hand reached out blindly. Brushing against his arm, Daniel froze, then let her fingers rest there. It felt like she was holding on to him even in her dreams. The night dragged on. Daniel tried to rest his head against the wall, but every creak of the building made his eyes snap open. Every shadow outside the window looked like danger. His body begged for sleep, but his mind refused. He couldn't allow himself to close his eyes when their lives depended on him. Around dawn, the city noises softened for a while. The girls slept peacefully at last. Daniel stood slowly, his muscles aching, and walked to the window. He pulled the curtain just a little, peeking outside. The streets were wet from the night's drizzle, the lamp still glowing weak, but no sign of the men, no glowing eyes, no sharp voices, at least for now. He exhaled, relief flooding through him. Then his stomach growled again, louder this time. He realized the girls would soon be hungry too. There was barely any food left after the meal last night. He would need to go out, but leaving them alone felt like betrayal. What if someone found them while he was gone? What if those men returned? Daniel clenched his jaw. He knew he had no choice. They needed food, and food meant risk. He looked at the two sisters sleeping, their small faces calm at last. They looked safe in that moment, but he knew safety was only an illusion. The sun began to rise. Weak light filtered through the curtain. The girls stirred, Lyra opening her eyes slowly. She sat up, careful not to wake her sister, and looked at Daniel. "Are we safe now?" she asked, her voice trembling between hope and doubt. Daniel forced a smile, though he knew the truth was different. "For now," he said, "but we need to be careful." Lyra nodded, her small shoulders heavy with more responsibility than a child should bear. She glanced at Sarah and then back at Daniel. "Will they come again?" she asked, her eyes wide. Daniel paused. He wanted to tell her no, to promise safety, but he couldn't lie. "Maybe," he admitted, "but if they do, I'll be ready." Her eyes softened at his words. For the first time, Daniel saw not just fear in her gaze, but a flicker of belief. She believed he could protect them. That belief felt heavier than any weapon, because it meant he couldn't fail. Not anymore. The day crept forward. Daniel found a scrap of bread and shared it among the three of them. It wasn't enough, but the girls ate quietly, thankful for even the smallest piece. Sarah smiled at him shyly, crumbs on her lips. It was the first smile he had seen from her. It was small, but it lit the room brighter than the broken heater ever could. But peace never lasted long. As Daniel cleaned the table, he noticed something strange on the door. A mark carved deep into the metal. It glowed faintly in the morning light, a symbol he had never seen before. Lyra gasped when she noticed it too. Her face went pale, her hands trembling. "They know," she whispered. "They marked us. They'll come back." Daniel's blood ran cold. The alley had been only the beginning. The night of shelter was not safety, but a pause. Whoever wanted these girls was powerful enough to leave warnings in the open, and Daniel realized with a chill that the city itself might not protect him anymore. He tightened his grip on the pipe again. The girls clung close to him, their trust now unshakable. He looked at the glowing mark on the door and knew one thing clearly. Their real danger hadn't even started yet. The night had given them a brief shelter, but the storm was only waiting outside. The strange, glowing mark on the door did not fade. It pulsed faintly as if alive, breathing like a warning. Daniel stared at it for a long time, his jaw tight. He had no idea what it meant. But he knew one thing. Whoever had placed it was not done with them. Lyra stood frozen, her golden eyes wide with terror. She pressed Sarah close against her chest, whispering quickly in their alien tongue. Daniel caught only pieces, broken words that meant nothing to him, but her voice shook, and that was enough to tell him the truth. This mark was not just a threat, it was a message. He placed his hand gently on Lyra's shoulder. "Tell me," he said softly. "What does it mean?" Lyra's lips trembled. She looked up at him. "It means they found us," she whispered. Her voice cracked. "It means Mother will come." Daniel blinked. Mother. The word echoed in his head, heavy, mysterious. "Your mother?" he asked, frowning. But Lyra shook her head quickly. "Not like you think," she said. "She is different. People fear her. People obey her." Daniel tried to make sense of her words. The idea of a mother powerful enough to make the city whisper sounded unreal. Yet he saw the fear in Lyra's face and realized it was not a child's imagination. It was memory, it was truth. He paced the small room, his mind racing. If this mother was coming, then maybe she was the one truly searching for them. Were the men in the alley working for her or against her? Would she punish Daniel for interfering? Would she take the girls away? The uncertainty pressed down on him like a weight. He finally stopped and looked at the sisters, their faces pale, their bodies trembling, but in their eyes there was still hope. They wanted him to protect them, even from their own blood. That morning the streets outside grew louder. Voices in the market carried strange whispers. People spoke of a tall alien woman seen near the gates, her hair shining like silver fire, her presence making soldiers step aside. Merchants closed their stalls early. Children were pulled away by their parents. No one dared speak her name aloud. They only called her the Mother. Daniel heard these whispers as he went to fetch food. He kept his hood low, but his ears caught every word. A shiver ran down his spine. He realized this woman was not just a parent searching for her daughters. She was someone with power. Enough power to shake fear into an entire city. Back at the apartment, he found Lyra staring out the window. "She is close," she whispered. Her small hand pressed against the glass. Sarah clung to her, frightened but too tired to speak. Daniel placed the bread on the table, his heart pounding. "What will she do if she finds you?" he asked. "Lyra's." Silence was his answer. She didn't know, or maybe she knew too well. That night the city lights seemed dimmer. Even the neon signs buzzed low as if bowing to the unseen presence. Daniel sat awake again, the pipe across his lap. The girls lay together on the bed, their faces pale in the glow of the weak heater. Every creak of the building felt like a footstep. Every whisper of wind felt like a voice. The mark on the door pulsed faintly, and Daniel felt like it was watching him. At midnight, footsteps echoed in the hall. Slow, steady, deliberate. Not the hurried steps of thugs, but the calm walk of someone who had no fear. Daniel's grip on the pipe tightened. The girls stirred, sitting upright, their eyes wide with recognition. "She is here," Lyra whispered, her voice breaking. Sarah hid her face in her sister's shoulder, trembling. The footsteps stopped outside the door. The mark glowed brighter. A hand pressed gently against the metal, not knocking, just resting. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. Then, a soft voice slipped through the door. It was not cruel, not loud, but deep and certain. "My children," it whispered. "Open the door." Lyra gasped, tears filling her eyes. Daniel shook his head quickly, motioning for silence. He mouthed the words, "Don't move." But the girls were already trembling too much. The voice came again, this time sharper. "Do not make me wait," it said, and the door rattled against its hinges. Daniel stood, his chest heavy with dread. He was only a man, facing something he didn't understand. But when he saw the fear in the children's faces, he knew he couldn't just hand them over, not without knowing what this so-called mother truly was. He lifted the pipe slowly, his muscles tense. The room seemed to shrink, the air thick. The girls clung together, their golden eyes never leaving the door. The glowing mark pulsed like a heartbeat, faster and faster. The voice outside grew quiet again, almost gentle. "Human," it said at last. "You have what belongs to me, and you will give them back or you will burn with them." Daniel's heart pounded so loud he thought it might break his ribs. He stared at the door, sweat on his brow. He had stepped into something far greater than he ever imagined. And now, the one everyone feared was standing right outside his home. The whispers of the mother were no longer rumors. They were real. They were here. And Daniel realized this night would decide everything. The door shook as if a storm pressed against it, but it did not break. It only pulsed with the glowing mark. Waiting. Daniel stood in the dim light, his grip tight on the rusted pipe. Behind him, the two alien girls clung together, their golden eyes shining with fear. They did not dare to cry out, but their trembling spoke louder than any words. Then, silence. The footsteps outside stopped. The mark dimmed. For a moment, Daniel thought maybe she had gone. Maybe the whispers had been nothing but fear feeding fear. But then the air itself seemed to bend. A presence pressed through the walls, heavy, suffocating. And the door slowly opened, not by force, but as if bowing to someone's will. She stepped inside, tall, elegant, her skin faintly silver like liquid light. Her hair flowed like strands of fire, and her eyes glowed with a power that made Daniel's knees weaken. She wore no armor, carried no weapon. But the silence around her screamed louder than any blade. Every shadow bent toward her as though the city itself obeyed. The girls gasped. "Mother!" Lyra whispered, her voice cracking. Sarah buried her face in her sister's chest, refusing to look. The woman's gaze drifted to them, soft for only a breath. Then her eyes turned to Daniel, sharp as blades. "You," she said, her voice calm but carrying the weight of command. "You touched what is mine." Daniel's throat felt dry. He lifted the pipe slightly, though his hands shook. "They were alone," he said, his voice trembling but steady enough to be heard. "They were crying. I couldn't just walk away." The woman's lips curved faintly, not into a smile but into something unreadable. "You dared to interfere," she whispered. "And yet, they live because of you." She stepped closer, the floor groaning under her weight though she moved lightly. Daniel felt every nerve scream at him to run, but his legs stayed. The sisters pressed tighter together, watching their mother with eyes that were both longing and fearful. The woman reached out, her long fingers brushing the mark on the door. It vanished at her touch, fading like smoke into the air. "You have no idea what you have done," she said slowly. Her eyes never leaving Daniel's. "Men who touched them before you lost their lives in agony. Yet you stand here still breathing. Why?" Daniel swallowed, sweat sliding down his neck. "I don't know," he admitted. "I only know they needed help." Her gaze softened for the briefest moment. Then she turned to her daughters. "Come," she ordered, her voice quieter now. But Lyra shook her head, clutching Sarah tighter. Her small voice rang out, trembling but brave. "No, not without him." The woman froze, her glowing eyes narrowing. Daniel blinked, stunned by the words, "him." The girls wanted him with them. The woman's expression shifted, unreadable, as if something unexpected had touched her heart. She looked back at Daniel, her silver hair glinting in the dim light. "You risked your life for them, and now they claim you," she whispered. Her tone was no longer just commanding. It carried curiosity, even something like respect. The tension thickened. Daniel lowered the pipe slightly but did not let it go. "What do you want from me?" he asked. The woman tilted her head, her eyes glowing brighter. "I want nothing," she said. "But they want you, and that changes everything." She walked slowly toward the bed, her presence filling every corner of the small room. She knelt down, her elegant frame folding like shadow. Her hands cupped the faces of her daughters. For the first time, her voice softened. "You are safe now," she whispered. "Because of him." The girls clung to her touch, but did not let go of each other. Lyra's eyes darted back to Daniel, silently begging him not to leave. The woman rose again, her gaze fixed on Daniel with a strange intensity. "You will not be punished," she said, her voice carrying finality. "Instead, you will be given something no human has ever received." Daniel frowned, confusion mixing with fear. "What do you mean?" he asked. The woman's eyes gleamed like molten gold. "A reward," she whispered. "But not a gift, a choice." Her voice echoed like a bell inside the small room. "You may walk away now. Forget them. Forget me. Return to your human life. Or you may accept what I offer, and carry a burden that will never leave you." Daniel's chest tightened. He had only wanted to protect 2 children from monsters in the alley. Now he stood before a being that could bend shadows, silence soldiers, and mark doors with living light. He glanced at the girls, their innocent faces filled with hope, trust, and fear all at once. They wanted him to stay. But what price would that bring? The woman took one slow step closer. Her presence was not crushing now, but tempting, pulling him toward a path he didn't understand. "You saved them," she said softly. "So now you must decide. Will you keep them, or will you give them back?" Daniel's breath caught. The pipe felt heavier in his hands. The room was silent, except for the faint hum of the city outside. His heart thundered, his mind screamed with fear and doubt. But deep down, something else stirred, something stronger than fear. The choice she offered was more than life or death. It was destiny, Waiting at his doorstep, the mother had arrived, and nothing in Daniel's world would ever be the same again. Daniel's breath felt heavy in his chest. The mother's words echoed through the small apartment like thunder. A reward, but not a gift. A choice. Her glowing eyes never left his face, her presence pressing against him like invisible chains. The two alien girls clung tighter together, their golden eyes shining with fear and hope. They did not understand what this choice truly meant, but they knew one thing: they did not want to lose him. Their tiny hands trembled, yet they reached toward Daniel as if pulling him closer with only their hearts. Daniel's grip on the pipe weakened. It suddenly felt useless, like a toy against the weight of the moment. He swallowed hard, his throat dry. "What kind of reward?" he finally asked, his voice steady though his body shook. The mother tilted her head, her silver hair catching the dim light like threads of fire. "You saved my blood," she said, her voice low, calm. "No human should have touched them and lived, yet you not only lived, you protected, you fed, you gave them shelter." Her eyes narrowed, glowing brighter. "For this, I offer you a bond, stronger than steel, older than stars." Daniel frowned, confusion tightening his chest. "A bond," he repeated. The word felt strange, heavy. "Yes," the mother said, her voice rolling like distant thunder. "My daughters see you as theirs, and if you accept, then by our law, by our blood, you will be bound to them forever." Daniel's heart skipped. Forever. The word crashed into him like a wave. He looked at the girls, Lyra staring at him with steady eyes despite her fear, Sarah clutching her sister, refusing to look away. They trusted him. They wanted him, but forever was not something he had ever planned. "What happens if I refuse?" he asked carefully. The mother's expression did not change. "You will live," she said simply, "but they will be taken, and you will never see them again." Her voice was soft, but it cut sharper than any blade. The girls gasped, tears filling their eyes. "No," Lyra cried, "not without him." Sarah's small voice cracked as she whispered, "Please, don't leave." Daniel felt his chest tighten. He had lived a lonely life in this city. No family, no friends worth trusting. No one had ever looked at him with such pure belief as these two girls did now. And yet, he could feel the danger like a shadow pressing in. This bond, whatever it was, would drag him into something far beyond a normal human's life. The mother stepped closer. Her presence filled the room, her glowing eyes now softer but no less powerful. "If you accept," she whispered, "you will share their fate. Their enemies will be yours. Their future will be tied to your blood." She paused, her lips curving faintly. "And yet, you will also share their strength, their protection, and my name." Daniel's hands shook. The choice felt impossible. Walk away and lose them, or stay and bind himself to something he could not understand. His heart pounded as he looked at the girls, their tears, their trembling hands, their fragile trust. He knew the answer before his mind caught up. He could not abandon them, not after everything. He lifted his chin, his voice steady now. "I accept," he said. The words hung in the air, heavy, unbreakable. The girls gasped, their eyes wide with relief and joy. The mother's gaze narrowed, then softened. "So be it," she whispered. She raised her hand, and the room darkened as shadows gathered around her fingers. The glowing mark that had once been on the door appeared now in the air, shimmering like fire. Daniel's instincts screamed at him to step back, but his feet stayed rooted. The mother pressed the mark against his chest, and pain exploded through his body. White-hot, burning, yet not destroying. He gritted his teeth, his knees nearly giving way. The girls cried out, rushing toward him. But the mother lifted her hand, stopping them with nothing but her will. The burning sank deep, not into his skin, but into his blood. Daniel gasped, falling to one knee. The mark glowed bright on his chest, then faded, leaving only a faint scar. His breaths came heavy, but he felt something strange inside. A warmth, a strength that had never been there before. It pulsed like a second heartbeat, echoing with the rhythm of the two girls behind him. Mother lowered her hand, her voice calm but final. "It is done," she said. "You are bound. Their lives are tied to yours. Their pain will be yours, and their safety will rest in your hands." Daniel struggled to his feet, his chest still burning faintly. He looked at the girls who rushed to him, their small arms wrapping around his waist. He placed a shaking hand on their heads, pulling them close. They were his now, and he was theirs. The mother watched silently, her eyes unreadable. Finally, she spoke. "You chose the harder path," she said, "but perhaps the right one." Her voice carried both warning and something almost like pride. Daniel swallowed, his heart still racing. "What happens now?" he asked. The mother turned, her silver hair catching the light one last time. "Now," she whispered, "you will learn the cost of what you asked for." And with that, she stepped into the shadows, vanishing like mist, leaving only silence behind. Daniel stood in the small room, the girls holding on to him, the mark on his chest still warm, the weight of the choice pressing deep. He did not know what future awaited, but one thing was certain. Life would never be the same. The strange reward was his now, and its true price had only begun to reveal itself. The apartment was quiet again. The shadows had swallowed the mother's presence, leaving only the faint scar glowing on Daniel's chest. The two little alien girls clung to him, their small arms wrapped tight, as if they feared he would vanish too. Daniel stood still, his heart racing, his body weak from the strange power burning inside him he had chosen. And there was no turning back. The city outside carried on as if nothing had changed. Merchants shouted, machines rumbled, neon lights buzzed. But in the small room, something greater than the city itself had shifted. One human had just been bound by alien law. One man had stepped into a destiny far larger than himself. Daniel lowered himself to the bed, pulling the girls closer. Sarah pressed her head against his chest, whispering in a trembling voice. "You stayed?" she said softly. "You didn't leave us." Daniel's throat tightened. He stroked her hair gently. "I promised," he whispered. "I won't leave you." Lyra's golden eyes shone in the dim light. "You don't understand," she said, her voice soft, but heavy. "You are one of us now, you carry our blood." Daniel looked at her, confusion and fear mixing in his chest. "What does that mean?" he asked. Lyra hesitated, then lowered her voice. "It means enemies will come for you. It means their power can hurt you now. It means you are marked as ours." Daniel clenched his fists. The mark on his chest pulsed faintly, a reminder of the bond. He thought of the mother's words. "Their pain will be yours. Their safety will rest in your hands." The weight of it pressed harder than iron. But then he looked at the girls, their fragile faces, their trembling smiles, and he knew he had made the only choice he could. That night passed in uneasy quiet. But Daniel felt something different within him. His senses sharper, his body stronger, his heart beating with an energy not his own. When the girls finally fell asleep, Daniel stayed awake, testing the strange power in his blood. He could hear the faintest sounds in the streets below. He could feel the warmth of the girls' heartbeats even from across the room. The bond was real, alive, unbreakable. At dawn, the peace shattered. A crash echoed from the street outside, loud and violent. Daniel rushed to the window, his eyes widening. The same men from before were back. But this time they were not alone. Dozens of them marched through the alley armed, their glowing eyes sharper, their blades brighter. And at their head walked a figure in black armor, tall and cruel. The girls woke instantly, their eyes wide, with terror. "They serve the enemy," Lyra whispered, her voice shaking. "They know about the bond now." Daniel's chest tightened. The mother's gift had not just saved the girls, it had painted a target on his back. The armored leader raised his weapon, shouting into the air, "Human, you are marked. Surrender the children or burn with them." The men roared, their voices echoing through the city. Daniel's heart pounded. He turned to the girls, fear and courage burning inside him. He could run, but the bond told him there was no escape. If he ran, their fear would follow him, their pain would reach him, their death would be his own. He gritted his teeth, gripping the pipe once more. Not just a man anymore, but something more. The door rattled, fists pounding. Sarah whimpered, clinging to his arm. "Don't let them take us," she begged. Daniel knelt, pulling both sisters close, his voice low but firm. "I swore I'd protect. You and I will." His chest burned with the bond, a fire igniting deeper than fear. It wasn't just strength, it was purpose. The door cracked, splinters flying as blades struck. Daniel stood tall, his hands shaking but his eyes steady. The girls stayed behind him, their small faces hidden against his back. The mark on his chest glowed, pulsing in rhythm with their fear. Power surged in his veins, not human, not alien, but something new. And Daniel realized that his choice was no longer only about survival. It was about defiance, about standing against the darkness with nothing but will and blood. The door burst open, enemies pouring inside, their glowing eyes locked on him, their weapons raised. Daniel lifted the pipe, his voice loud enough to shake the walls. Then, "Come," he growled, "but you will not touch them." The girls gasped at his voice. It was not just human anymore. It carried an echo, as if the bond itself spoke through him. The men hesitated, fear flashing in their eyes. The armored leader sneered, but his steps slowed. He could feel it too, the mark, the bond, the power of the mother's choice. In that moment, Daniel understood. The reward was never gold, never treasure. It was the bond, the fire, the destiny. And though it brought enemies, it also gave him something greater. A reason to fight, a reason to live, a reason to stand unbroken. The battle was only beginning, but the world had already shifted. One human, two alien children, and a bond strong enough to shake the stars. Daniel tightened his grip on the pipe, his chest burning bright. The sisters pressed close, their trust unshakable, and outside, the city whispered of what was to come. The choice had been made, and it would shake worlds.